For for people who don't know me, my name is Isamari Vasquez. I'm HR director. With me is Robin Walsh from HR Work. Thank you for joining us today for this important section on preventing and addressing sexual harassment in the workplace. We are glad to hear to we are glad you to here with us, and we appreciate. So welcome to everybody, and you can take it away, Robin. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Isamari. Yes, I really appreciate you all taking the time to be here with us today. I know that each and every one of you plays a very critical role in PathStone's mission, particularly in supporting communities and making a real difference in people's lives. And because of that work that you do, you know better than most the importance of respect and trust and inclusion. And a strong team absolutely has to have that foundation of respect in order to even be able to function well. And that's really what we're here today. And that's really what today's training is about. Ensuring that the workplace is a space where everyone feels safe and valued and able to do their absolute best work without worrying about harassment or discrimination or bullying. And so I do encourage you to bring kind of your real world perspective into this discussion. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. I have the chat pulled up. So if you throw a question in there, I'll absolutely answer it throughout the session. Don't feel like you need to hold your questions till the end. Let's talk about what this really looks like in your workplace. So the goal of this training is not just to check a box. It is really to make sure that everyone here understands what is expected, feels comfortable speaking up if something doesn't feel right. So let's get into it. So upon completion of this training, you will understand how to recognize harassment as inappropriate behavior. You'll know the definition of workplace harassment. You'll be familiar with PathStone's complaint process for reporting potential harassment. You will understand that managers, particularly, have a very special responsibility to report harassment. Um, you will recognize appropriate workplace behavior, know your rights, and then also feel secure and entitled that you can work in an environment of respect for all people. And then just being aware of all of your avenues for addressing workplace harassment. All right, PathStone is committed to making sure that every worker has a fair, safe, and respectful workplace. There are laws and policies that are in place to protect diversity and ensure that everyone, no matter their background, can do their job without fear of harassment or discrimination. And so, preventing harassment, including sexual harassment and all other forms of illegal discrimination, is absolutely essential to that positive work environment. And so, harassment of any kind will not be tolerated. This is going to be an interactive training. It's going to help you understand what harassment looks like, how to recognize it, what to do if you experience it, or even if you witness it. And we'll also go over the process for reporting harassment within our workplaces, as well as just your rights to report concerns to state or federal agencies that enforce anti-discrimination laws. And now, while New York State, Maine, and Delaware, they all have a requirement for an annual harassment training. Today's discussion is meant to go a bit beyond that. So we're going to cover harassment based on race and gender and disability and other legally protected characteristics. So if harassment is reported, it will absolutely be taken seriously, it will be investigated promptly, and it will be addressed with appropriate action. Oops. All right, everyone has the right to work in a harassment-free environment. So let's just kind of start with that very simple but very, very important fact. Every single person here, no matter your role, has the right to work in an environment free from harassment. And a workplace should be a place where you can focus on your job, right? You could feel respected and not have to worry about being disrespected or intimidated or made to feel uncomfortable. And that's not just best practice, that's actually the law. So every organization has a responsibility to maintain a harassment-free environment. And at the same time, organizations, PathStone of course included, have that responsibility to make sure that right is protected. And so that means having clear policies in place, having the training just like this, and then also taking action when those issues do arise. But maintaining a harassment-free workplace isn't just about HR. And it's also not just about leadership, too. It is about every single one of us because we all play a very critical role in creating the culture where harassment is not ignored, it's not excused, it's not just tolerated. Because harassment in the workplace will not be tolerated. And this is really the bottom line. Whether it is based on gender, race, disability, or any other protected category, it will not be tolerated. And that means if harassment happens, it will be addressed. If someone reports harassment, it's going to be taken seriously. And if we see something that crosses the line, we all have the responsibility to speak up. And so this training is about making sure that we understand what that harassment is, how to recognize it, and then also what to do if it happens. Because at the end of the day, a respectful and safe workplace is going to benefit every single one of us. Now, harassment is a form of discrimination that can be any verbal, physical, or visual. It can consist of words, signs, jokes, pranks, intimidations, physical actions, or violence that is directed at an employee due to a protected characteristic. And now, under certain state laws, intent is not a defense. And so the impact to the victim is really what matters in assessing whether the law has been violated. So harassment need not be severe or pervasive. And workplace conduct based on an employee's protected status that exceeds petty slights or trivial inconveniences could be considered unlawful harassment. So whether that harassing conduct is considered to be trivial or petty is from the perspective of a reasonable victim of discrimination with kind of those same protected characteristics. So that's kind of how the law views that definition. Does anybody know what I mean by a protected class or a protected characteristic? Feel free to throw those in the chat. Any guesses or any examples? I've already given you a few, just a hint. Age, race, yeah, absolutely. Age, race, sex, national origin, gender, disability. Yes. Yes, all of those are great. Yeah, it could be creed, color, national origin, sexual orientation, military status, sex, disability, marital status, domestic violence victim status in some states, gender identity, and then also criminal history in some states as well. The next slide, we're going to cover all of the various protected characteristics at both the state and the federal level. But what can harassment include? Well, it can include offensive behavior that's based also on stereotypes about a protected class or behavior that is, again, intended to cause discomfort or humiliation because of somebody's membership to that protected characteristic. It can also include any sort of expression of contempt or hatred for the group to which the victim belongs based on, again, that protected characteristic. All right, we're going to talk through a little scenario here. Samir wears a turban to work every day, and he has a few small religious pictures and knickknacks in his locker. His coworkers feel uncomfortable, but he doesn't discuss or push his religion on them. Some of his coworkers have started talking behind his back and calling him Seek the Freak. One of his coworkers has placed a post-it note on his truck and which reads, "Go back to Afghanistan, seek the freak." Samir reported this to the supervisor, and the coworker's explanation to the supervisor was that, it's just a funny joke, and they really just felt Samir should lighten up. So, question for the group here. Feel free to throw it in the chat, yes or no. Should Samir just accept that his coworkers were only joking around? No. Yeah, I'm getting overwhelming no's. Yes, even if the coworker's behavior was intended to be a joke or funny, the comments are offensive and they're targeting somebody because of their religion or ethnicity. So, appropriate humor in the workplace, totally fine. There's plenty of room for humor at work, but it doesn't involve making some fun of somebody's race, gender, age, religion, or insert any other protected class here. How about this? True or false? Samir needed to tell his coworkers that he was uncomfortable before he went to his supervisor. False. Yeah, overwhelmingly. Yeah, although this is not required, if you are in a position where you feel safe enough to do so, sometimes it can stop the behavior. So you could address it yourself immediately. However, you can always go to your supervisor to report that if you are experiencing that. And the organization would want to know about that as well so that they can take appropriate action. All right, we're going to watch a little video on microaggressions and then we'll discuss afterwards. Give me a thumbs up in the chat to make sure that the volume's working and you can hear it.
Hi, Joe. Sorry I'm late for the call. I
Cool.
had a perfect morning, had to catch the last set.
You surf?
Yeah, I'm at Ocean Beach pretty much all the time. You?
Totally. We'll have to go when I'm up there next week.
Hey, I'm stoked. Epic.
Sure, 27 to 3 o'clock. Sounds good. Are you John?
Joe? Oh, yeah. Great to meet you. I I totally had you pictured different in my head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but, anyways, can I get you a cup of coffee?
Yeah, sure.
My hair looks crazy. It looks like a mess.
I don't believe it. Your hair always looks awesome. I mean, how do you do it? Do you twist it? Do you do it yourself?
Yeah, I twist it myself.
Oh. I mean, do you mind?
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, actually, I do mind.
Oh. Sorry.
But I mean, if you're really curious about it, there are like tons of YouTube videos out now about natural hair, so maybe check that out.
There's no way we were gonna make it to that date.
No. I have no idea what they were thinking. What are you doing this weekend?
Going to the beach with some buddies.
Dude, sunscreen. You've already got quite the tan. Where's your family from?
Here,
Yeah, but before here, where are they from?
still here.
But before that.
A few generations from here.
Cool. Sorry.
I'm going to launch a little poll here and give you a few moments to take that. All right, we've got a little over half. So I'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results here. All right, so first question here, John being caught off guard by Joe's appearance, not a microaggression because he just simply thought he would look a different way. Majority of you said false. I tend to lean in false. It's very natural for us to have a kind of an image of what somebody's going to look like before we meet them. And the intentions may have been good. The optics here aren't great. It does appear that Joe was caught off guard by John's age in this case. It could potentially lead to John feeling as if he's being treated differently if these microaggressions continue. How about this one? It's not appropriate to assume that somebody is okay with another coworker touching them, including their hair. Overwhelmingly, you all said true, which is the correct answer. It's never okay that somebody is to assume that somebody is okay with being touched in the workplace. This is a very common microaggression against Black people because of their natural hair texture and style. And so while somebody may feel like they are being complimentary, this only ends up serving to make the individual feel more uncomfortable or embarrassed. And then question 3 here, it's okay for a coworker to push their coworker, for the one coworker to push their other coworker on their national origin because they're just being curious and they were just trying to make conversation. Majority of you overwhelmingly said false, and that's correct. Workplaces are diverse, and equality and inclusion, they should be felt by all employees. So by signaling somebody out who may look different from us, it just leads to feelings of discrimination and feeling like an outsider. So let's avoid those microaggressions. All right, we talked a little bit about state and protected classes, and I promised you that I would. Right. I promised you I would show all of the different federal and state classes. So a protected class is a certain attribute that individuals have that are protected from discrimination. On the left-hand side of the screen here, we have the protected classes at the federal level. So this would apply to any state that you are in, because these are going to be handled by the EEOC at the federal level. And then the right-hand column are in blue, and these are specific categories to states in which PathStone operates. So it's not meant to be an all-inclusive list. If you are ever curious about or want a resource that tells you what the protected classes are for your state, absolutely reach out to Human Resources and we can provide you with that. But I want to point out one thing here. Sexual harassment is a form of sex discrimination. And so harassment can also be based on other protected characteristics, but sexual harassment is based in the protected class of sex. So companies also have to apply with the various state laws, which may prohibit discrimination or harassment against employees or applicants, also interns based on these protected classes. And now some states have also adopted regulations that are clarifying that unlawful discrimination also includes discrimination against an individual because of that individual's known relationship or association with a member or a member of protected category. So what that means is, let's say, for example, I have an autistic son. And during maybe the interview process, I tell you that I have an autistic son, and then the company decides not to hire me because they think, oh, well, they're going to have to take off a lot of time, or maybe they don't have reliable childcare. That could be seen as a form of discrimination based on not my classification to a protected characteristic because of my known association to somebody with a protected characteristic. So that's kind of how that works. And then on the lines of sex-based harassment, because the protected category of sex kind of includes a lot of different kind of categories. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about that for a moment. So sex-based harassment also includes gender and pregnancy and childbirth and other related medical conditions, including lactation. It also includes harassment based on sexual orientation, self-identified or perceived sex, gender expression, gender identity, and also the status of being transgender, including an individual's transgender status or the intent to transition. And so this also includes kind of name or pronoun use inconsistent with the individual's identity in a persistent or offensive manner. So to give you a few examples of workplace harassment and discrimination, it could be joking about an individual's age. It could be mocking or disparaging an individual's accent. It could be telling jokes or sending emails that are sexual in nature. It could be using racially or sexually derogatory names, slangs, insults, or jokes. It could be disparaging comments about an individual's religious dress or observances. Or it could be complaining about a coworker using disability services, such as workers' compensation or needing a workplace accommodation or needing a disability leave. Now, as we talked about sexual harassment, the protected class of sex includes several different forms of harassment. So gender-based discrimination is also unlawful under federal, state, and where applicable, local level. Sexual harassment is unlawful when it subjects an individual to inferior terms and conditions or privileges of employment because of their gender, gender identity, or gender expression. So sexual harassment is not just limited to sexual contact, right? Touching or expressions of like sexually suggestive nature. Sexual harassment also includes all forms of gender discrimination. So including like gender role discrimination, or stereotyping, and then also maybe treating an individual differently because of their gender. So I want to kind of go through some of the definitions that you see on the screen here, because I think that's important, and sometimes it's important to have awareness of those things. So the definition of sex is the classification of a person as male or female. So at birth, infants are assigned a sex, and that is usually based on the appearance of their external anatomy. So that's usually what is written on the birth certificate. A person's sex, however, is actually a combination of body characteristics, including chromosomes and hormones and internal and external reproductive organs, and then also secondary sex characteristics. Now, sexual orientation describes a person's enduring physical, romantic, or emotional attraction to another person. So gender identity and sexual orientation are not the same thing. And transgender people can be straight or lesbian or gay or bisexual or queer. And so, for example, somebody who is transitioning from male to female and is attracted solely to men would typically identify as a straight woman. And then there's also self-identified or perceived sex. So gender expression is kind of that external manifestation of gender, right? It's how we express our gender through our name, our pronouns, our clothing, our haircut, behavior, voice, body characteristics. Society has kind of created these cues as either masculine or feminine, although what is considered masculine or feminine does tend to kind of change over time, and it also varies a lot by culture. But typically, transgender people will seek to align their gender expression with their gender identity rather than the sex that they were assigned at birth. And now, gender identity is this internal, very deeply held sense of what your gender is. So for transgender people, their own internal gender identity does not match the sex that they were assigned at birth. And most people have a gender identity of a man or a woman or a boy or a girl. But for some people, those gender identity doesn't neatly fit into one of those two choices. And that's where we see non-binary or genderqueer individuals. And unlike gender expression, which is, visible to others, gender identity is not visible to others because it's that deeply held sense of our belief. And then you have a cisgender person. This is a person whose gender identity corresponds with the sex that they were assigned at birth. I am a cisgender person. I identify as a female, and that was the sex that I was assigned at birth. A transgender person is somebody whose gender is different than the sex that they were assigned at birth. A transgender individual may describe themselves using one or more or a variety of terms, including transgender. And you should use the descriptive term that is preferred by the person. So many transgender people may be prescribed hormones by their doctor to try to bring their bodies into alignment with their gender identity. Some may undergo surgery as well. But not all transgender people can or will take those steps. And transgender identity is not dependent upon somebody's physical appearance or medical procedures that they choose or do not choose to take. So a person's gender identity is absolutely valid whether they choose to take some, all, or none of those steps to actually transition. And then we have non-binary individuals. Non-binary is an identity that is embraced by some people who do not exclusively identify as a man or a woman. So non-binary people may identify as being both a man and a woman, somewhere in between, or simply falling completely outside of these categories. And while many also identify as transgender, not all non-binary people do. So I bring all of this up because it is just very important to remember that there are many identities that are used by people in the transgender and the non-binary community, which describes their personal experience with gender. And these identities are both valid, they are very personal, and they are very unique to the individual. And there is no one way to determine if somebody is transgender or non-binary unless they share that very personal gender identity with you. And if somebody shares their gender identity with you, you should respect them. And you should also just embrace the diversity that is inherent in the transgender and the non-binary community. We're going to watch a little video and take another poll.
Hey, Greg, thanks for getting me the data on client retention. It was super helpful.
No problem. Happy to help. That's me, Jennifer the superhero.
Sorry, my bad.
No problem. Glad you got what you needed.
Hey, do you have all the data from the Mid-Atlantic region?
I do. Greg got it to me this morning.
You mean Jennifer?
I do. I just can't get used to it.
Well, try a little harder. It matters.
I know. I knew Jennifer as Greg for 5 years, so give me a few weeks to get used to this change.
Work on it.
Jennifer and Mandy, can you share the data you gave me with Mandy? It'll be helpful for the marketing project she's working on. Mandy, Jennifer can get you whatever you need. He's a miracle worker.
He's a miracle worker, even when he compliments me.
I swear I'm trying. I just have a mental block or something.
Well, nobody else has one. It was one thing when Jennifer transitioned. Everyone screwed up. I did. But it's been months.
I know, but it was her choice, not mine. Cut me some slack.
We did. She did. But that was then and this is now.
I'll try, but you know what? I'm not going to lose sleep over what pronoun I use.
Nice. Try thinking about what it would feel like to be different and wanting to be comfortable and included.
All right. I'm not a bad guy. I'll make the effort.
All right, I'm gonna launch another poll here. I'll give another 15 seconds and then I'll end the poll. All right, first question. Once we are informed of an individual's pronouns, there's absolutely no excuse for misusing their pronouns in the future. This was kind of a trick question. I'm sorry, you guys. This is actually kind of both. So we do have a job to listen when an individual is informing us of their pronouns. We also have a duty to be mindful of their pronouns. However, mistakes do happen. It is okay. Acknowledge the mistake, apologize, and try to be more cognizant in the future. Where the issue really comes into play is when we are very flippant about using an individual's preferred pronouns or correct pronouns and repeatedly misusing them without any care or concern for the individual. I like to give this example of if my name was Helene, and you were my coworker, and every time I saw you in the break room, you called me Helen. And I was like, oh, actually, my name's Helene. And, next time you see me, you're like, hey, Helen, how are you? And again, my name is Helene. But then you just kept calling me Helen. How would that feel if it were you? It wouldn't feel very good, right? It would feel like this person has no respect for me. They don't even care to get my name right. I've taken so many opportunities to correct them and let them know what my name is, and they just still cannot get it right. It wouldn't feel very good. And pronouns are very similar. It's very tied to somebody's personal identity, and it's a similar experience. Question 2 here. It's Jennifer's responsibility to report her coworker for using their incorrect name and pronoun, even though the others are also hearing this too. So overwhelmingly, maybe not overwhelmingly, a majority of you said false, and that is correct. Now, ideally, we would want Jennifer going to the organization's designee to report how they are feeling, because preventing harassment and discrimination is everyone's responsibility. But based on the video, it's probably time that somebody speak up about this behavior towards Jennifer. And then last question here, what should we do if we are unsure of somebody's pronouns? So the majority of you said respectfully ask, and that is correct. So it is okay to respectfully ask somebody what their pronouns is. You can also use they, their pronouns as just kind of like a standard as well. This just kind of shows that you are an inclusive organization and you're accepting of everyone. You can also, if you want to get in the habit of it, introduce yourself. Hi, Robin Walsh, she, her pronouns. And just that simple act alone can make somebody who uses they, them pronouns feel immediately comfortable. Now, hold on, let me stop sharing. What is sexual harassment? Well, sexual harassment includes unwelcome conduct, which is either of a sexual nature or it is directed at somebody because of that individual's sex. And when I say sex, I mean all of the different characteristics that we just talked about that are all inclusive into that one title. So this can be conduct that has the purpose of effective unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment, even if the reporting individual is not the intended target of the sexual harassment. Or the such conduct is made to either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of employment, or it's a submission or the rejection of such conduct, which is then used as the basis of employment decisions that is affecting that individual's employment. So there are two main types of sexual harassment. There's hostile environment harassment, and there's quid pro quo. We're going to talk about both. So simply treating somebody in a hostile way because of their membership in a protected group can be unlawful harassment. A hostile environment on the basis of sex, can be created by words, signs, jokes, pranks, intimidation, could be physical actions or violence, either of a sexual nature or not of a sexual nature, but they're directed at that individual because of that individual's sex. Now, a hostile environment, sexual harassment includes sexual or discriminatory displays or publications anywhere in the workplace, such as like displaying pictures or posters, calendars, graffiti, objects, promotional material, reading materials, or any other materials that are just sexually demeaning or pornographic. And this, it could include sexual displays on workplace computers. It could be on cell phones. It could be sharing such displays while you are in the workplace. Now, hostile actions taken against an individual because of that individual's sex, such as like interfering with or destroying or damaging somebody's workstation, or damaging like their tools or equipments, or otherwise interfering with that individual's ability to perform their job. It could also be sabotaging an individual's work, or bullying, or yelling, or name calling. The nature of the conduct need not be severe or pervasive. It only needs to be more than petty slight or trivial inconvenience for the employee to have a valid claim. Now, a hostile work environment can exist in a physical office space, or it can also be when we are working remotely through a virtual meeting platform, or emails, or chat-based apps, or social media, or any other sort of like telework mediums. So let's do a little scenario here. Bill and Samantha have been coworkers for several years and they get along great, sometimes including a little flirtatious banter. One day, while out to lunch together, Bill parked the car, locked the vehicle, and he began telling Samantha about various sexual activities he enjoys. And then he leaned in to kiss her. Samantha resisted and attempted to leave, but could not because Bill had locked the doors. So after aggressively pushing him off of her, Bill apologized and he said he misread Samantha's intentions. And he told her it would never happen again. So Samantha's kind of wondering, should she report Bill's behavior? She doesn't necessarily want to get him fired, but she also just doesn't want it to be awkward working with him again. So I'll launch another poll here for us. We'll give another 15 seconds and then I'll. Okay, so first question. Bill's conduct was not sexual harassment until he touched Samantha. True or false? Overwhelming majority of you said false, and that is correct. So Bill's talk of sexual activities that he has enjoyed could be considered harassment, and can create a claim for hostile work environment. Because hostile work environment does not just apply to physical touching, but can also include, sexual oriented gestures, noises, remarks, jokes, comments. Although the conduct was objectionable and physical in nature, for this to be considered harassment, Samantha has to prove that Bill behaved this way more than once. Majority of you said false, and that is correct. As previously mentioned, victims of harassment no longer must wait for the conduct to be severe or pervasive. This means that Bill's actions, even if it happened only once, could provide Samantha with a valid claim of harassment. Additionally, unwelcome physical conduct would likely be automatically deemed more than petty, trite, or physical trivial inconvenience. And then lastly here, since this happened off property, it's not workplace harassment, true or false. And overwhelming majority of you said false, and that's correct. Harassment can occur off company property and outside of working hours and still be considered workplace harassment. And we're going to get into that more in just a little bit. So I told you there was two types of harassment, a hostile environment and quid pro quo. And quid pro quo sexual harassment occurs when a person in authority trades or tries to trade job benefits for sexual favors. So quid pro quo is a legal term meaning a trade, or in a Latin term meaning this for that. So quid pro quo sexual harassment does include offering or granting better working conditions or opportunities in exchange for a sexual relationship. It could be threatening adverse working conditions like demotions or shift alterations or a work location change. Like, hey, now I'm going to start making you report to a work site that is, 45 minutes away from your home, and I know that's going to cause a ton of problems for you. It could be the denial of opportunities if that sexual relationship is refused. It could be using pressure or threats or physical acts to force a sexual relationship. Or it could be retaliating or refusing to engage in a sexual relationship. So this type of harassment is typically going to occur between an employee and then somebody in authority, like typically a supervisor, but somebody who can either grant or withhold job benefits. So practically speaking, a person in authority can tell an employee what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and then what happens if you do or don't do it. Now, quid pro quo sexual harassment includes maybe offering or granting better working conditions or opportunities in exchange for a better sexual relationship. Or it could be threatening adverse working conditions, or it could be retaliating or refusing to engage in that sexual relationship. Now, let's talk a little bit about sex stereotyping, because sex stereotyping is a form of gender discrimination. And sex stereotyping will occur when someone's conduct or personality traits are judged based on other people's ideas or perceptions of how an individual of a particular sex should either act or look. So harassing a person because of that person's gender expression does not conform with typical gender stereotypes, such as like what appropriate looks or speech or personality or lifestyles is sexual harassment. Harassment because somebody is performing a job that is usually performed or maybe was performed in the past by mostly persons of a different sex is also gender discrimination. And then finally, assigning work tasks based on like traditionally gendered roles, such as like placing a woman in charge of refreshments or placing a man in charge of moving boxes, is gender discrimination. All right, how about this one? Tamara is a transgender woman, and she notified her supervisor, Allison, that she has completed her transition. However, Allison insists on calling Tamara Tom, her former male name, and using male pronouns and referring to Tamara as sir. Allison refers to Tamara in this manner in front of coworkers and clients who would otherwise have no reason to know about Tamara's transition. So another quiz here for you. All right, first question here. Allison calling Tamara Tom and referring to her with male pronouns is likely just out of habit. It's not malicious. Tamara should just accept it and move on. True or false? Overwhelmingly, you all said false, and that is correct. It could be true that Allison is unintentionally doing these things, but it's the repetitiveness of these incidents that would appear otherwise. And even more importantly, individuals do not need to intentionally make somebody uncomfortable for their behavior to be considered unacceptable or illegal. So just because an employee lacks the ill will, it doesn't necessarily mean that their behavior is okay. And then true or false here, Tamara is likely to being subject to workplace harassment based on her sex. True. And the majority of you said true. Tamara may be subject to harassment based on her sex. Employers are prohibited from harassing employees because of a gender transition, such as intentionally, or persistently failing to use the name or the gender pronoun that responds to the gender of that employee, to which that employee identifies, and also to which the employee has been communicated that to managers and to employees. All right, another video for us.
I mean, who can tell these days, seriously? Like, take Ken. Is he or isn't he? And does he even know?
No idea. Why do you care who he's sleeping with if it's not you?
You can tell, right? Like, would you go up to him in a bar?
Why would I go up to him in a bar? Jessica, I'm not gay.
Oh, come on. You're amongst friends, it doesn't matter to me.
Jessica, I'm not gay.
Right. You dress well, perfect hair, you're a foodie, and it looks like you just got a manicure. You're gay.
Okay. It's not like it would matter, but I'm not.
Okay. Look, everybody already knows, nobody cares.
Knows what? What are you saying about me?
Nothing bad.
Why are you talking about me at all?
Come on, don't get mad. Okay, you're not gay.
All right, another poll for us here. Oh, the video did not play? Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you everyone else for confirming. I'm sorry for that one person who said it didn't play for them. Oh. Saw the video, but no poll. Oh, what is going on right now? If you can't see the poll, we'll go through the questions in just a moment. All right. Question one, Jessica gossiping about Ken on whether he is gay or does he even know is not sexual harassment because Jessica is speaking to Ken directly. True or false? Overwhelming majority of you said false, which is correct. Also, the spreading of the malicious gossip can become harassment in the workplace. We all have a responsibility to ensure that everyone is comfortable at work, and we should not assume or gossip about a coworker's sexual identity. It's just not appropriate. How about this? Jessica's stereotyping her coworker for dressing well and being a foodie and commenting on his grooming habits. It's not harassment because it's, true. He likes food and he does take pride in his appearance. So majority of you said false to this one, which is correct. As previously stated, sex stereotyping is a form of sexual harassment. And so Jessica is making assumptions about her coworker because she perceives his appearance and his behaviors to be more feminine qualities or attributes of a gay man. And last question here, Jessica is harassing her coworker by questioning his sexual orientation and spreading the falsehood that her coworker is gay. Ooh, overwhelming 99% majority of you said true to this one, which is correct. Jessica's coworker does not identify as gay, and even if he did, it is absolutely inappropriate for Jessica to identify him or try outing him to other coworkers. It's just absolutely not appropriate for the workplace. Now, sexual harassment can occur between any individual, regardless of their sex or their gender. So that means that it can occur between members of opposite sex as well as those of the same sex. And state laws will protect employees and also additional covered individuals, including paid or even unpaid interns, applicants for employment, a contractor or a subcontractor. It could be a vendor, it could be a consultant, it could be anybody who is providing services in the workplace. And this includes independent contractor, gig workers, temporary workers, or even the participants that you serve. Now, who could be a perpetrator of sexual harassment? Well, it can be also anybody in the workplace. So a harasser can be a coworker of the recipient. The harasser can also be the supervisor or the manager. The harasser can also be any third-party company, including a non-employee, an intern, a vendor, a building security, the person who delivers, your water for your water jug. It could be a participant, it could be a customer or a client, or even a visitor. Simply put, anyone in the workplace can be a perpetrator of sexual harassment or discrimination. Now, where can sexual harassment or workplace harassment occur? Well, it can occur whenever or wherever employees are fulfilling their work responsibilities. So that might include in the field, at an employer-sponsored event, at trainings, at conferences that are open to the public, and office parties. It can also occur where employees are working remotely or other like video meeting platforms or web-based chats. Employee interactions during non-working hours, like working at a hotel or like traveling to an offsite event, those can also have an impact on the workplace. So locations offsite and off-hours activities can also be considered extensions of the work environment if they involve your coworkers. So let's watch a video. Give me a thumbs up if it's playing for you.
Hey, why the angry face?
Here, take a 5-minute break with me for a sec.
What's up?
I'm gonna kill him.
Who?
Richard.
Why, what did Richard say?
He's bugging me. He started following me on Instagram last month, and now he's embarrassing me with all these comments and DMs. I can't post without him commenting on it.
Well, what kind of comments is he making?
He's made some other comments too.
Is he leaving a comment right now? Why don't you just go ahead and block him?
No way, that'll just make things worse.
You sure about that? It may discourage him. It really depends on what you say. Why don't you just talk to Eric? He is the GM. He may be able to tell Richard just to back off.
No. I mean, he's already trolling me over the internet. I don't want to bring work into this.
Well, I don't know whether you know this or not, but we're talking about right now, and we're at work.
Sorry for if the video's not playing. I have no idea why that's happening intermittently. I can always send out links to the videos afterwards. All right. Oh, let me launch the poll here for us. All right, another 5 seconds. All right, so because Anna allowed Richard to follow her on Instagram and she refuses to block him, Anna can't make a complaint of against Richard, true or false. Majority of you said false, which is true. So employees can be the target of sexual harassment or discrimination through calls or text or emails or social media, regardless of whether they allowed an individual to follow them or not. Now, if Richard makes comments on Anna's Instagram while he's not at work, management can't intervene because since it's not done on the clock. And now the majority of you said false on this, which is true because remember that harassment can occur during non-work hours if these situations end up having an impact on the workplace. I have had situations where there was incidents where it had absolutely nothing to do with work and something to do with a personal matter, but because it got brought into work and it was a thing between colleagues and was causing tension between colleagues, it ended up being a situation that we needed to investigate and intervene into. And those aren't fun situations and those are complex, but because it was spilling over into the workplace and affecting colleagues, we had to get involved and we had to intervene. So. And then last question here, incidents or comments made between coworkers on social media should be left at the door and not discussed during working hours. So this one is actually false. Because these situations, again, are having an impact on the workplace, they have to be addressed. Because harassing behavior that in any way affects work environments is rightly the concern of management. All right, another video here.
So last night I had dinner with friends. I get on the subway at Union Square, people everywhere, and this guy is sitting next to this woman, doesn't know her at all, and he just leans in and says,
"Whoa, what's going on here?"
Just telling a story.
I have a call.
Dude, you were doing more than telling a story.
Come on, I tell great stories.
Listen, I've heard all about your stories. Consider your audience. I don't think she wanted to hear it.
All right, do you believe it's the responsibility to step in if you see or overhear potential workplace harassment or discrimination? All right, majority of you said yes. Some of you said it depends. So I would say both are correct. When you notice something going on, try to do something. Either directly address the situation. So exactly what he did in the video, he stepped in and he said something and he tried to stop the situation from progressing, right? But there's also other different ways that we can do that, right? Direct confrontation if possible, or if you're comfortable. Sometimes it's distraction, right? It's disrupting the interaction. It's saying like, hey, can I, get you over here for a quick question, and pulling like the person away. Sometimes it's going to get help if you're uncomfortable with the direct confrontation. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do if you witness harassment or discrimination in the workplace. So there's 5 different methods that you could use if you witness harassment or discrimination. So one interrupt the harassment by engaging with the individual who's being harassed and distracting them from the harassing behavior. You could go get help, right? Ask a third party to help intervene. Sometimes if you're not comfortable with it, you can record or take notes or just stand there and be a witness to it. Because what that's going to do is that's going to lend credibility to an investigation. You can also just go check in with the individual afterwards, and like let them know what you saw and how you felt about it, and let them know that from your lens, that behavior was not okay. Or if you feel comfortable enough to do so, you can confront the harasser, name the behavior as inappropriate if you feel safe enough to do so. All right, so what do you do if you experience harassment? Well, PathStone cannot stop harassment in the workplace unless we know about that. So that is why we say it is absolutely everybody's responsibility. So you are encouraged to report harassment to your supervisor or manager or any other person designated by PathStone, so that the employer, your PathStone, can take action. The behavior doesn't even necessarily need to be a violation of the law, to maybe possibly be a violation of just PathStone's, code of conduct policy. So we have a complaint form to report sexual harassment, or to report harassment and file complaints. If you are more comfortable reporting that verbally or in another manner, we may still be required to follow the harassment prevention policy and investigate the claim. If you believe that you have been subjected to harassment, and you are encouraged to complete the complaint form and submit that to your manager or HR. Now, once you submit that form or otherwise report any sort of complaint, we at PathStone, we're going to follow our policy. So if you submit a claim or make a report, we're going to follow our policy, and we are going to ensure that we are investigating that and we are taking appropriate action. What to do if you witness harassment? Well, anyone who witnesses harassment or becomes aware of potential instances of sexual harassment should report that to your supervisor, manager, or HR, because it is unlawful for your employer to retaliate against you for reporting suspected sexual harassment, or if you just choose to if you participate in any sort of investigation, or if you just even assist an employee in making a complaint of harassment. Your employer cannot retaliate against you for those actions. Those are protected actions. Now, if you are a manager or a supervisor today, you actually have elevated responsibilities. So there is mandatory reporting. So managers must report harassment of any kind that they observe or even suspect to know about, even if no one is objecting to the harassment. So if a manager receives a report of harassment or is otherwise aware of harassment, it has to be promptly reported to human resources without exception, even if the supervisor or manager thinks the conduct is trivial, or even if the harassed individual asks not for it to be reported. Managers can be subject to discipline for failing to report suspected sexual harassment or otherwise knowingly allowing sexual harassment to continue. Managers will also be subject to discipline for engaging in any sort of retaliation. As managers, you are held to a higher standard of behavior. And this is because you are placed in a position of authority by PathStone, and you must not abuse that authority. So your actions as a supervisor can create liability for PathStone without PathStone even ever having an opportunity to correct the harassment. And so you are required to report any harassment that is reported to you or to which you may observe. And you are also responsible for any sort of harassment or discrimination that you may know about, with a reasonable amount of care or attention to the workplace for which you are responsible. You are also expected to model appropriate workplace behavior, right? You're the role model for your group and for your team. Managers should also be mindful of the impact of investigations into sexual harassment that those can have on victims. And just stating that management has to accommodate the needs of individuals who have experienced harassment and to ensure that the workplace is safe, supportive, and free from retaliation for them during and after any sort of investigation. Now, I want to talk very specifically about no retaliation because any employee who is engaged in protected activity is protected by the law from being retaliated against because of that protected activity. And so, as I stated previously, protected activities with regards to harassment include making a complaint to a supervisor, a manager, or HR, making a report of suspected harassment, even if you are not the recipient of that harassment, filing a formal complaint about harassment or opposing discrimination, or assisting another employee who is complaining of harassment, or if you are providing any sort of information during a workplace investigation of harassment, or if you are testifying in connection with a complaint of harassment filed with a government agency or in a court. All of those activities are protected under the law. Now, what is retaliation? Retaliation is any sort of unlawful activity that is an action that may discourage a worker or a covered individual from coming forward or to make support of sexual harassment or claim, or if we punish those who do come forward. So, for example, if we demote somebody or fail to promote somebody, again, without merit, or we give them a sudden work schedule change or a work location change, if there's any sort of threats of physical violence outside of work hours, or just disparaging or harassing somebody on social media, those could all be considered retaliation. Retaliation can also be any other negative action taken by the employer against the employee that could have the effect of discouraging a reasonable worker from making a complaint of harassment or discrimination. And now, that negative action need not necessarily be job related or even occur in the workplace, because it could occur after even employment has ended, such as like giving an unwanted negative reference because somebody participated in an investigation or a complaint. Now, I think it's also important for us to talk about what is not retaliation, right? What is not retaliation? It could be like a negative employment action that is not retaliatory merely because it occurs after the employee engages in that protected activity. So employees, of course, are still continued to be subject to all of their job requirements and disciplinary rules, even after they have engaged in protected activity. So in order to establish a claim of retaliation, an individual has to be able to show that an adverse action was motivated by the protected activity. So if you come forward with a complaint, or you participate in an investigation, and then your supervisor writes you up for attendance because you've been late a lot, that's not necessarily retaliation. However, I will say from an HR perspective, HR is typically going to be a little bit more critical of those disciplinary actions or write-ups or things of that nature if somebody has engaged in protected activity. So typically we're going to scrutinize that even a little bit closer just to ensure that no retaliation is happening. But it's not to say that just because you engaged in protected activity, you participated in investigation, it doesn't mean that we're still not going to hold you accountable to your job responsibilities, or conduct requirements and things of that nature. We can still hold you accountable to those things. However, what we can commit to is that we are not going to use those disciplinary tools or employment actions because you participated in a protected activity. Now, anyone who engages in harassment or retaliation will be subject to remedial or disciplinary action, and it could be up to and including termination of employment. All employers have to investigate all reports of harassment, whether the information was reported in verbal or written form, and also an investigation or any complaint could be completed within a reasonable time frame. So for example, it may be like 30 days. The investigation is also going to be confidential to the extent possible, meaning that we may ask you to not share information outside of, of the investigation or the witness statement. Also, any employee may be required to cooperate as needed in an investigation. So if you may have been a witness or may have potentially known about something, we may ask you to participate in an investigation, and it is your obligation and responsibility to participate in that investigation and give us the factual information and answer the questions. It is also, again, illegal for employees who participate in any investigation to be retaliated against. If you, for some reason, are asked to participate in an investigation and you are worried or leery or uncomfortable, you should communicate those concerns with HR, and I promise you they will do their best to address those concerns and assuage you, again, if you're concerned about retaliation or anything like that. Now, the organization also has a duty to take appropriate steps to ensure that harassment is not going to occur in the future. So here's typically how investigation claims will generally be addressed. So the designated individual will conduct a prompt review of the allegations, and then we may even take any interim actions appropriate, such as like anything that we need to do to create a safe and amicable work environment. So maybe that's reassigning someone, maybe that's removing this person from direct supervision from this other person while we investigate. So those are interim actions that we may possibly take. There could be relevant documents. We're going to gather all of the relevant documents, emails, phone records, things like that are going to be requested, preserved, and obtained. So again, if there's reference to text messages, we may ask to see screenshots of those text messages to assist in the investigation. Interviews will be conducted with all parties involving any witnesses. The investigation will be documented and outlined within our harassment and prevention policy. And then the individuals who complained, and then also the individual who is accused of the sexual harassment, will be notified that there is a resolution and that appropriate administrative action has been taken. And I think this is, I want to expand upon this just a little bit, because I think this is where individuals who make a complaint get frustrated because they are not told what the actions were that the company took, right? So that's not necessarily from a confidentiality standpoint, that's not necessarily information that we can share with you. So if you are an individual who makes a complaint, we're going to do our investigation. We're going to look into allegations. However, when we get to a final result, we may not be able to tell you this person was written up, or this person received additional training, or this person, like what happened. We will let you know that there was a resolution and whether the allegations were substantiated or not. But we won't be able to tell you what actions that we took. And that's because if you were the person who had committed the harassing behavior, you wouldn't want your business being put out there or being shared with other employees. So we just have to kind of trust the company is making the best decisions. And again, if you have concerns, you can bring those to human resources, and we'll do our best to alleviate your concerns or address your concerns as best as possible. Okay, so now, in addition to what we've already outlined, employees can also choose to pursue other remedies for addressing harassment and discrimination. So, of course, employees are encouraged to have their concerns addressed by PathStone. But in addition to internal complaint process, employees can also choose to pursue outside legal remedies. So that may be going to the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Commission, or that could be local protections, which we'll talk about. You do not need an attorney to file at the federal, state, or local agency level. Now, New York State employees particularly, I'm speaking with you on this slide, New York State Division of Human Rights, for a complaint to be filed with the Division of Human Rights, that can be filed either with the Division of Human Rights, or it could be filed with the New York State Supreme Court. Now, complaints of sexual harassment can be filed with the DHR at any time within 3 years of the alleged discrimination or harassment. Also, any other discrimination complaints have to be filed within 1 year. If an individual did not file at the DHR, they can sue directly in state court under the human rights law within 3 years of the alleged discrimination. An added individual may not file with the Division of Human Rights if they have already filed a human rights law complaint in the state court. So if you seek an attorney and file a right to sue with an attorney, you can't then also go to the Division of Human Rights and file with them as well. Now, the state has also enabled a toll-free confidential hotline that is administered by the New York State Department of Human Rights. This hotline was launched in order to provide individuals with complaints of workplace harassment and counsel and assistance. So you can call this line and ask questions and provide information or just to seek guidance if you don't feel comfortable using an internal method. Now, Maine employees, I'm speaking with you directly. Any person who believes that they have been subjected to unlawful discrimination is covered under the Maine Human Rights Act and can file a complaint with the commission. A complaint should be filed with the Maine Human Rights Act Commission as soon as possible after the act of discrimination occurs, but the complaint must be filed within 300 days of the date of discrimination. And so what you can do is a complaint can be initiated by calling in writing or by visiting the commissioner's office. There is an electronic intake questionnaire form that can be completed and also submitted online. There are also alternative formats can be made available, and an intake officer will assist you with drafting a complaint once your form has been received. But what your complaint should contain is kind of a briefly set of the facts and the circumstances surrounded the alleged discrimination. And now, Delaware employees, I'm speaking directly with you. If you have witnessed or experienced sexual harassment, you should inform your manager, of course, but an equal opportunity officer at your workplace or human resources if possible. Now, report sexual harassment to the Delaware Department of Labor Office or Anti-Discrimination. You can do this by calling or visiting the website to learn how to file a complaint or report discrimination. And also, the Office of Anti-Discrimination is a neutral third party and can also facilitate a voluntary mediation or conciliation, which might be able to help with like lost wages or other damages if that is applicable. And then at the federal level, and this applies to everyone on this call here, the EEOC, the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, an individual can file with the EEOC anytime within 300 days of the alleged discrimination. The complaint must be filed with the EEOC before you can file in federal court. And so for more information, you can go to eeoc.gov. And then just a note here, if an individual files with an administrative complaint with, let's say, the New York State Division of Human Rights, the DHR is automatically going to also file a complaint with the EEOC just to preserve the right to proceed in federal court should they need to or want to. And then also there are local protections. So there are many local localities will enforce laws protecting individuals from sexual harassment and discrimination. So you can always contact your county, city, or town in which you live in to find out if such laws exist. Now, this is particular if harassment could constitute an actual crime if it involves things like physical touching or coerced physical confinement or coerced sexual acts. So you can also contact your local police department if any of those things apply or you feel like a crime has been committed. And just to summarize everything that we have learned so far, while the focus kind of the policy is on sexual harassment and gender discrimination, just a reminder that many state laws also protect against discrimination in other protected classes, and also PathStone's policy should be applicable to all protected classes. What questions do you have? Feel free to, I think if you take yourselves off mute or raise your hand, or if you want to put questions in the chat, but this is your opportunity to ask questions. We've got about 10 minutes left in our training here. So if there's any questions that you have, please feel free to bring them forward. I love questions.
I think everybody understood.
All right. I'll hang on for a few more minutes in case anybody wants to ask a question but doesn't necessarily feel comfortable sharing it with the whole group. I'll also stop the recording too.